Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So, let's jump in. Hello you guys and welcome back to another episode of the Fit and Free podcast. As you can hear, I've got a super special guest with me today. And if you've already listened to the last episode, that you know that Niels, I was going to call you my husband, but we're not married yet. My fiancé is here on the podcast and we've got a super special episode for you guys. So to set the scene, we're sitting here in my office. We are, yes, that couple who is wearing the same jumper right now, we're actually also wearing the same color tracksuit pants. Long story short on that was I got Niels a jumper for Christmas and then the jumper arrived and I was like, fuck, this is like such good quality. And I don't know if you guys struggle with finding a good hoodie that's like oversized, that's fleecy, that's comfortable. I struggled with that. So I ordered one for Niels and it came and I was like, fuck, this is amazing. I'm just going to get the same one so I don't have to do any more research on finding a good jumper. Anyway, the story about the matching jumper. But I'm super excited about today's episode because I have written out a list of questions and Niels has no idea what I'm going to ask him. So, with that being said, Niels, I would love it if you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
All right, so I am originally fully Dutch, but I actually grew up in Cyprus, so I'm a bit of an expat kid. So I don't know if anyone can relate to that, like have a home but don't really have a home sort of thing. So yeah, that's me, and I love surfing. And I like all board sports, but especially surfing.
I didn't know you still felt a bit like you didn't have a home. I thought you had a home now that you found Australia.
Yeah, I do. Australia's probably the first place where I'm flying into the country and I'm like, oh, I've really missed this. Like, I've really missed this place. Like coming, like a really emotional homecoming feeling. I've never ever had that before until I moved here.
Yeah, that's so nice. I don't think it's just Australia. I think it's me.
Potentially could have something to do with it, yeah.
I joke. Anyway, so like I said, Niels has no idea on the questions that we're going to be asking about. And I want to give a little bit of context here. So if this is your first podcast episode, then quick backstory. I struggled with my relationship with food for a good 26 years of my life. And it wasn't until I hit about 26 years old was when I really went through my healing journey. And Niels and I have been together for 10 years. So he was by my side through the thick of it.
This is what the questions are going to be about. Right.
He was by my side through the thick of it. He saw the good, the bad, and the fucking ugly. So today's episode is really zoning in through that period of our life from about the age of 19 is how old I was when we started dating to like, it's so crazy that I'm 30 now. Like that's such a long time. So Niels was there every step of the moment. And I know it definitely played a toll on his life because it definitely played a toll on mine. So what I want to do with today's conversation is really like actually give you a bit of a glimpse of what it could be like for other people within your life. Because for me, I know deep down one of the reasons why I went through my healing journey is because it was putting so much strain on my relationship. And it absolutely wasn't fair the way that I was treating Niels, but like I have so much compassion towards myself because the reason why it was happening, it was all mental. It was all of my, my insecurities and my lack of self-worth and all of these things that were going inside of my head. But because that was happening, then I wasn't able to be myself. I was this irritable, moody bitch. I was cold. I was angry. I was such a shit person to be with. But Niels has just been so amazing because he's been there and he never gave up on me, which was so nice. I don't know how you did it.
I know, I'm amazing.
But
This is such a good podcast idea.
I just wanted to go, so today is really going to be from Niels's point of view of what it was really like to be dating someone who had low self-esteem, a poor relationship with food, and what it was really like to be married to this irritable, cold, moody bitch. Just to one, normalize that this is the stuff that really goes on that you don't probably see on social media. And also for me personally, it was such a good motivation to change and really bringing it into my awareness and really actually acknowledging how other people around me and how I was making them feel. I was like, fuck, that's so bad. Like, I need to clean my shit up. This is not fair for Niels. It's not fair for me. It's not fair for anyone who has to hear about it. So that's why I wanted to sit down and have the conversation. So how do you feel now that I've explained that to you? This is the first time he's heard it, you guys.
Yeah, I actually think it's a really good idea for a podcast.
Yeah,
I think it's because it gives the listeners a third person perspective on what it's like. Because no, I didn't go through what you went through, but at the same time I kind of did go through what you went through. So yeah, like what that's like from a third person, from your loved one's perspectives. Yeah. I think that's really good podcast idea, Loz.
Amazing. Okay, let's get into it then. So first we're just going to start off with some just random questions and then we're going to get into it. Let's have a few icebreakers just to get into it. So the first one is, how long have we been together?
We've been together. We've had a 10-year anniversary this year. So yeah, we're going to celebrate that in Bali in a few weeks and it's going to be a really good time. Yeah. We booked our accommodation for it.
Yeah, it's bougie.
It's going to be good. Excited.
Good. Love that. What's my favourite food?
Pasta. Spag bowl.
What's my favourite chocolate?
Fuck. Favourite chocolate? Well, favourite chocolate right now is the coconut one.
No, I'm not eating that. I'm off it, remember?
Oh, Top Deck. Duh.
Oh, there we go.
Top Deck. But you haven't eaten Top Deck so long.
I know, because I only buy it when it's on special. I'm not going to buy a block of Dairy Milk chocolate for $6. It's a bit of a rip.
Is it $6?
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, let's move into the real question. So, remember the time where I worked with the vegan coach? I was going through my vegan era. Yes. I worked with the Game Changers company. What was it really like being with me after that 12-week stint with that vegan coach? Remember that specific day where I was like, just completely complaining about being so fucking hungry and then feeling so guilty for going over my calories.
Yeah.
And then I, had this massive mental breakdown, tears. Then I, pulled myself out of it. And then we went and bought the rug from Kmart. Do you remember that?
Now you're really testing my memory.
But anyway, regardless, that wasn't the first instance where I had a meltdown for eating too many calories. So what was it really like that in that phase of watching me just being so fixated on eating basically too much from your experience?
I guess, ironically, from my perspective, it may have been similar to your experience as well, because for you, all of this experience is new. And you're not like, maybe you're thinking like, oh, is this normal? Is this not normal? I don't know. And I was the same. I was like, well, maybe all women are just like this. You know what I mean? Like, maybe this is just normal. And, yeah.
What do you mean it's normal?
Well, like being really emotional, irrationally emotional about certain things, just having like outbursts, unprovoked outbursts where you're like, well, did I do something, or like what's going on here? And just, maybe just not really understanding what's going on, like fully understanding what's going on. I think that's probably
in terms of like what was really going on in my head when I was going through that. Do you mean just a lack of understanding?
No, that's not what I mean. I mean more so in terms of like, is this normal for a person to be going through this? For a woman to be going through this? do women in general struggle like this? Is this just what it's like to be with a woman?
So having that, yeah, and that makes like somewhat of a sense because it's obviously early days and we're still learning a lot about each other now, even after being 10 years together. But like, obviously there's going to be a lot of growth moments throughout the relationship, and especially for you because Niels he's Dutch, so he is very logical, and he's just the type of person who is very analytical, and he's not that in touch with his emotions. So it makes complete
On top of the fact that I'm Dutch.
Yeah. So of course, because if you don't know, Dutch people are so like they're really, really good at communicating, whereas Australians are not so good. Like, of course, take that with a grain of fucking salt, like not everyone. However, it's a common theme within Australia, and for me personally, like I have been a chronic people pleaser like my whole life, and my ability to communicate was very, very poor. So of course, like that makes complete sense into terms of like you being like that in that situation, just being like, is this normal? Is all women like this? Just having no fucking idea. But with that being said, it's like, okay, cool. Like you didn't understand if this was a normal thing. How did you feel when I was so reactive? When I was so, crying all the time for eating so much? Like, how was that for you?
It was hard because I always just want to help you and I want you to feel as good as possible. And then it's you get to like these feelings of despair because you want to help the person that you love, and yeah, so no matter what you tried, it doesn't work, and you just feel like this feeling of despair. Like I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but like when your partner feels something, then you feel it too. That's how I've experienced it, at least. So it's a really negative feeling to feel, and you just want to try and do something about it to help them so that you can also feel better, and it just nothing that you do works. In fact, it often makes it worse. Trying to help makes it worse. And then
how does that make you feel when it makes
and then
it worse?
And then at that point, the best thing that I found that you can do is just remove yourself from the situation. So I would go and go for a wakeboard, for example, because back then I was doing a lot of wakeboarding. I'd go for a wakeboard, but then I'd go for a wakeboard and I would feel guilty because I was having fun and enjoying myself, and I was leaving Laura over here just basically in this slump. And it's like catch-22. You try to help and it makes it worse, and you leave and you go have fun yourself, and then you feel guilty for it.
Aww. That makes me sad when you say that.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so crazy of how much it really does have an effect on other people's lives. And it's so right. And I know so many women can relate to that, is because the men come in with their logical way of thinking, and Niels is notorious for that. He's such a fixer. He wants to come in and fix the problems. But then because of that, there's not a lot of empathy shown within that, because it's just like, oh, just, don't worry about it. Let's just eat more, or whatever the conversation is of being like, it's okay, the calories don't have to be perfect, blah, 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 like a real logical way of going about it. But then, of course, I never felt heard, and I was like, he just doesn't get it and doesn't know how I feel. And then I would even, then that would make me angry, which would then put, again, a lot of pressure on the relationship because of, that lack of understanding on both ends of I wasn't getting my needs met, but then Niels was, trying to help me with my needs, and you can see that clear disconnect. So it just breaks my heart that, just also that us not being able to communicate our feelings and our emotions, and understanding, how to give each other what we both needed through those moments. And I think one of the biggest lessons in all of that was, for me now, knowing, been working with a hypnotherapist now on and off for 10 years or whatever, it's like so important to not rely on your partner to make yourself feel good. That was so wrong of me to do that, because I used to rely on you so much to help me make myself feel better. But that's not fair for you, because then the only version of me that you're getting is the one that is upset and crying and calling herself fat and ugly and all of the story. And then you try and fix it and you then feel guilty about it. Like, you don't deserve that. You deserve to have the best version of me. So that's a really important lesson through all of that, is I needed to be showing up for you and fulfilling your needs instead of, relying on you to make me feel better through that time. Yeah. Anyway, now I want to go into, I was so fucking irritable when it came to food.
Yep.
What was that like?
Something immediately springs to mind, which was how you always, because you love food, and so when we first started the relationship, and your relationship with food probably wasn't as bad, I used to buy you food, and I used to come home and buy you something or whatever.
Yeah, you would drive home from work and stop in at Hungry Jack's and get me a mango smoothie.
For example, exactly. And that, you used to really appreciate that. And then I remember you used to say that you loved when you get cooked for. And so then I would try that, and it would just backfire like crazy. Me cooking for Laura left us worse off than before I started cooking, if that makes sense. If I hadn't have started cooking for Laura, I would have been better off.
Why? What happened when you cooked for me?
Oh, I might have used... you just started questioning about how I was preparing the meal. You would be like, okay, how much oil did you use? Or something like that. The oil was a big thing. And I was like, oh, just, a little bit. And you would just lose it. And I'd be like, what have I done? Yeah, just totally... If anyone has not watched this video, you've got to go watch it. It's called It's Not About the Nail. And when I first watched that video, you can find it on YouTube. When I first watched that video, it was I felt like the most heard I'd ever felt about how I communicate, or how men communicate with women. I was like, wow, this just, no pun intended, hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, I remember it was wild. I was such a control freak, and I would say all of these things, and I'd be like, yeah. And then I would also play the victim card so hardcore as well, because I'd be like, oh my God, you never do anything for me, you never cook for me, you never X, Y, and Z. But of course the reason why I didn't fucking do anything is because every time you did, I was just this crazy explosive volcano that would come in and being like, how much fucking rice have you got in that? How much oil are you using in that? And then it would be so hostile and so aggressive that I look back and reflect on it, and I'm like, holy fuck, I used to be such a bitch. And still to this day, there is still patterns that play out from this time. So it is very clear that I fucking scarred Niels. That's how toxic that it was around food. There's still times now where he's won't take the lead completely, because he's probably still afraid that this version of me will still come out. Thoughts?
I don't know if that happens subconsciously. It definitely doesn't happen consciously, I don't think. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it definitely could be something that's subconsciously there. But what I'm trying to say is, like I said at the start, for me, this was also new. I'd never been in a long-term relationship with a woman before. So I was like, well, maybe this is normal. Do you know what I mean? I didn't experience it as toxic yet. And right now I can look back and say, well, yeah, that was clearly, we weren't in a good place. You know what I mean? But at the time, I was just figuring, I guess that's what your 20s are for, just figuring it all out. And I was just sitting there thinking, well, maybe this is just how it is.
And that's so sad that so many people think that put up with that and think that that's normal. But honestly, I truly believe now, like, that's why so many people are so unhappy in their relationships. And there's, like, what's the statistic on divorce? And I think just having this conversation to normalize that shit is not normal. That is not okay. That is not how to treat your partner. Is such an important thing. What do you think was the turning point when you realized that? Because there was a part of our relationship that, you know, really did suffer. Was there a point in time where there was a turning point and you realized that it wasn't okay for us to be, you know, that aggressive and, like, for me to be that irritable every time food was involved? Like, this is not just a once-off thing, right? This was, like...
No, it went on for years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Was there a specific time? No, there wasn't a specific time. There would be instances where I would get to a point to where I was like, this is the limit of what I'm willing to take. And then I would say that. I would basically say, hey, this is not fair on me, or this is not, I don't deserve to be treated like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think there was like a line in the sand moment to where I was like, okay, this is toxic and this is not toxic. No.
Yeah, okay. That makes complete sense. So during this time, how did you feel about our relation romantically?
Again, it just comes back to that feeling of real sadness, of like wanting to make your loved one feel better, but being powerless.
And that would be hard as a male, because a male's role in life, physiologically, is to protect and provide for their female loved ones. So that makes complete sense in terms of the why you felt that way.
Yeah, I guess so.
Did you feel disconnected? Did you feel unloved? Did you feel like, in terms of me showing love to you, did you feel like that your needs were getting met during this time where I had such a poor relationship with food in my body?
No, probably not in some ways, but I didn't connect the dots. Like, I didn't think like, okay, well, XYZ needs aren't being met, which is the reason why that's happening is because of the relationship with food thing. I just thought that was other stuff, that they were separate problems, basically. That's how I experienced it. Like, okay, we've got to work on this, but we also got to work on this over here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But now, reflecting on it now, do you have a different opinion?
Yeah, you can clearly see that, you know, it's really clear, especially now, you know, working inside the Fit and Free Academy for a few years, you can clearly see the link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So going through this phase, like, I went through a crazy dieting phase, really poor relationship with food. Then there was a turning point where I hadn't had my period in like 3 years. I had hypothalamic amenorrhea. I was, of course, in denial that the reason why I didn't have it was because I was under-eating and over-exercising, because I didn't look like I was under-eating and over-exercising, quote unquote, to me. So during this phase with hypothalamic amenorrhea also comes a low sex drive. So when I was going through this phase of having a low sex drive, how did you handle that? Especially as a guy going through his teens.
Yeah, I would say, again, it was like, I think I had to get clear on what my boundaries were and speak out to make clear to you where the boundary was, to say, hey, you know, what's going on?
I need some love.
I need some love. I need some love because...
Was that hard for you?
Because otherwise it's not a sustainable relationship for me.
Yeah.
And I do remember saying that at least once. I don't know if I said it more than once, but...
Yeah, I remember that being like one of the deal breakers things, is because your love language is physical touch. And for me, my love language is not physical touch. Absolutely not. It is more acts of service. But then combine that with, you know, hormone imbalances, under eating and over exercising, and not having a sex drive at all. I remember that being one of the main reasons why I wanted to change, because there was a part of me that also felt really disconnected, because I also never wanted to have sex ever. And like, it's a human nature thing to, you know, connect and love. So I definitely knew that I needed to work on that, because I also was missing out on that aspect of my life going through that as well. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
I actually didn't realize that you felt that lack of, if that makes sense. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was absolutely one of the main reasons why I wanted to get my period back and get my hormones back in fucking check, because like the way to explain it is like, you just feel nothing. You almost just feel numb. You don't have these sense of like desire, and you don't get this sense of pleasure, because you're missing like the sex hormones. Like, they play a role in how you feel, and that's the way that I can explain it. And anyone who maybe is also, you know, going through this and you don't have a sex drive, it literally feels like nothing. Like, you don't...
Sounds like a come down.
Yeah, somewhat of a come down, just without the, like, maybe the anxiety that comes with the, well, for me, a come down. Anyway, that's a different conversation. But yeah, you kind of just feel almost like emotionless and almost like numb. There's no real like highs and there's no real lows. It's just really like nothing. And that's, you know, not a way to live your life, because we're meant to experience all emotions in terms of like from anger to love to pleasure to satisfaction to, you know, connection. And, you know, you miss out on so much of that when you're so tied into your body and what you look like and food.
Yeah, I can't believe that you're describing it like that right now, because that's how when I had the experience with my knee, when I broke my knee wakeboarding, they put me on endone, which I don't know if that's commonly used or whatever. But when I was on that was horrible. And that is exactly how you're describing it. It's like everything is muted. Like you don't feel really sad, but you don't feel really happy. You don't feel really motivated, but you don't feel really lazy. It's like everything is just in this middle ground. Like you just don't feel as much. And it's horrible. It was like that was horrible. And like if that's what you felt like, I'm like, wow, I can't imagine. Like, how long did you go around feeling like that?
Yeah, and I think it's something that for me personally, like I kind of like suppressed almost, because I was just like, my body was just into a point where it was just like, it was a bit jacked, right? Like, because I was doing so much exercise. Like, you know, I was waking up at 5 a.m. to go for a run before a 12-hour shift. And then in the afternoon, I would go work at Fit Stop and, you know, then do more exercise, right? Like, my body was just like, you know, it didn't feel, because it was just always running off so much fucking like adrenaline and cortisol. And I was just always like, and then because of my disordered eating and my fear of eating more, like I just never actually stopped to slow down to actually, like I didn't know what it felt like to feel good. I didn't actually know how to feel the full spectrum of emotions, because I would always fucking suppress them.
So how long did you go through life feeling like that?
Yeah, well, I think like that specific time, like it was just after I graduated uni, because when I was at uni, like I was partying, like we were fucking drinking 3 times a week then. So like I always had negativity around my body and around food during that phase. But like it was after uni when I, you know, stopped partying all the time. And then I found how easy it was just to drop weight when I stopped eating. And then I think it was from that moment, from like, you know, maybe 22 to 26, like that period of my life where I was like, oh, sick. If I just eat clean, I can drop weight really easy and get really small and get really lean. And I just do all this exercise. And then I got addicted to it, basically. It was like an addiction. And it was a coping mechanism, especially with the exercise. That was just like, that's how I managed my stress. That's how I ran away from my emotions. And because I was like, exercise is such a good addiction. It's so healthy. Of course, I never thought it was an actual problem.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what good felt like. I didn't know what having a sex drive felt like. I didn't know what life was supposed to feel like until I went all in and healed it all. Anyway, so moving into that, let's go there. So I worked with Sarah Liz King to get my period back, really worked on my relationship with food. How was that point in time for you? That's when I gained, that's when I went from 59 kilos to 73 kilos. I gained a lot of weight.
No muscle.
Yeah.
No muscle.
There was no... And that's not a bad thing, but that's when I went through the phase of... that's when I had to stop going to the gym. The way that I got my period back is like, I went down the food freedom path, fuck whatever, love your body now, stop exercise altogether, la la la.
Yeah,
like
I
don't believe in that.
Other side of the
exactly.
spectrum.
I don't believe in that. If I was to do it again, I wouldn't do it that way. However, that's the path that I did. So I stopped exercising. I stopped going to the gym. I started eating, fucking so much food. Well, I thought it was a lot of food, but now, after eating in calorie surplus, I'm like, that's a lot of food. Anyway. But yeah, how was that like? Like, watching me gain 10 kilos before your eyes, and how was that living with me? Because that was tough. Like, that was really hard going through that phase of giving up exercise after being addicted.
I would say for me, that period, just going off my memory, was less tough for me, because you were being supported at that time. Like, you had someone to support you with the exact thing that you were struggling with.
Yeah.
So
had a coach.
So it wasn't all on me, and it was also like, first of all, that person was not me, so it wasn't, your partner, you know how that dynamic is.
Yeah, that's why I'm such a big believer in getting support.
Yeah. And on top of that, she obviously specialized in this recovery process, which helped you with the trust factor. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think for me, that was a lot better, and you were getting incremental wins during that process. And so we were just celebrating those incremental wins. That's kind of how I remember that time. I don't remember it like the time before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and you're so right in terms of, like I said, I gained 10 kilos in front of your eyes, but it's like that, gaining that 10 kilos literally changed my life. It truly did. Like, really giving myself permission to eat all foods and actually going through that process. While yes, like, I wouldn't do it the same now, but I'm so fucking grateful that I did, because like, I remember going on the van trip that we went on, and that's when I did Queen Alchemy with Monica Yates. And it was that turning point where I was like, started to feel again and started to feel like myself again. And it was like I got my personality back. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, I remember, because this is my vlogging stage, and it's actually so nice to look back on the YouTube videos that I did create, because that's when I created my channel, was my journey of hypothalamic amenorrhea and getting my period back, and then watching myself, even though I was gaining weight, I was gaining so much more than that. I was gaining, no longer being terrified of food. And that in itself is just like, if you've never experienced it, you don't get it, but it's just like, it changes your life. And so,
yeah. And like you keep bringing up the 10 kilo weight gain, but I don't even remember that, because that's not what it was about at all. And to be honest, until you started talking about the 10 kilos, I didn't even know that you had gained 10 kilos.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that. Do you know why? Because for us, obviously, it means so much, and that's the problem. That's like the biggest problem, is like, because we care so much of what other people think of us, it's stopping us from healing. It's stopping us from doing eating the food or slowing down on the exercise or whatever that looks like for you. And that's so beautiful that you said that it's not fucking about that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. That whole period was not about, that wasn't the focus, so I didn't notice. Yeah.
There you go, guys.
Yeah.
No one actually cares about how much weight you have on your body. Anyway, so moving into, let's fast forward a little bit more. So I started strength training, actually learning how to do that properly with my strength coach. After I got my period back, I started strength training properly for the first time ever.
There's been a lot of coaches, hey?
I know. I've
coaches.
had coaches now for the last 10 years, and I'll probably have one for forever. Anyway, so I got my strength and conditioning coach, and he helped, like, I'd start doing in-person sessions, and from...
that coach?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking another coach. Right.
Yeah, no, because that was the real game-changing thing for me, and that's where I really learned that as strength training properly actually is the key to changing your body composition. And because, you know, so many people talk about the importance of food, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we get it. Food's important. Eat your protein, either in a deficit or a maintenance. But, like, really, food's actually pretty fucking simple when you get it. It's the exercise component that I had to learn. It's like, I used to, like, when I was over exercising, you know, I was doing strength training. In my strength training sessions, I'd be, like, trying to smash out, like, 10 exercises, rush through it, more was better, no rest times. Then on top of that, I'd be adding in cardio, and I was like, fuck, of course my body was just fucking jacked in terms of, like, nervous system just out of whack, hormones out of whack, just not progressing. My back kept flaring up, right? There's so many red flags in all of that.
Yeah.
But that was just such a learning point for me in terms of, like, oh, okay, your exercise program, like 6 exercises max, and, like, you know, really focus on training properly, which I'm so passionate about teaching. So that's when my body started to change in a really positive way, because that's when I started building muscle. And that was amazing, because I was like, fuck, like, I struggled so many years under eating and over exercising, and really I had to eat more and exercise smarter. Like, who would have thought? So as I was going through that process, how was that like? What was that like for you?
It's like the food wasn't taking up 100% of your time anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like, all of a sudden, it was like, oh, I'm bored. Like, I need to get a hobby. Like, you know? And it was like, oh, what shall I do for fun? You know what I mean? Like, and you started, so that's a really good thing, you know, because it was like, you were literally freeing up your time to actually spend it on things that filled your cup rather than took out of your cup, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, it was like a big ripple effect from there, you know, to like being able to have the bandwidth to focus on this business that we've been building for the last few years. Like, that just wouldn't have been possible before.
I love how you brought that up, because it's so accurate in terms of, you're so right. It's like, when you're stuck in this space, it's like exercise and food literally controls and consumes, 2 words there, your life. And like, that's all you do, that's all you think about, and it's also controlling. So I love that you brought that up, as the ripple effect was, yeah, I started a fucking business. I started helping women with this stuff. I actually started doing doing things for myself that actually, you know, made me feel good, that had nothing to do with nutrition and exercise. The biggest thing for me actually was I started hanging out with my friends. Like, and that was such a big thing, because for so long I isolated myself because of my relationship with food and my body. And that was like one of the happiest moments of my life, is I created such deep connections with, now still to this day, some of my bestest friends. And I think that in itself is just like...
And friends where it wasn't the thing that you had in common was food and exercise.
Yes.
You had
or
different
diet
things in
I was
common.
trying, or my body struggles. We didn't talk about that ever, which was just so different and so impactful for me for so many reasons. So now, just to wrap it up, now I have just spent from December to now in a calorie surplus. Like, we've gone full circle. We've gone from eating next to nothing, terrified of eating food, now to overfeeding myself and really being so fucking free with food. Like, Niels cooks for me. How many times a week do you cook? I've actually asked him to start cooking 50% of the time, because I'm fucking over it. I'm so over being in control, which is like, just goes to show the growth that really has happened. But what has it been like now over the last 12 months of being with me?
I mean, it's been longer than 12 months that you've fixed this.
I know.
Like, massively.
I know, but I really feel like the last, you know, doing this calorie surplus really like solidified. I no longer have an issue with nutrition or exercise, actually. I actually
I mean,
intentionally gained weight on purpose.
I mean, maybe that's how you experienced it, but for me, it feels like you've beat this thing a long time ago already.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like, it's definitely not in the last 12 months. Maybe to you, it feels like, yeah, it feels different, or it feels like an extra victory that you've gone the other way. But to me, it's been like, okay, you've fixed it. You've beaten this thing for good a long time ago.
And how's that for you?
Oh, it's great. Now we get to stress about other things. Yeah, like there's no, that part of, it's just a chapter, you know what I mean? It's the chapter is finished. That chapter is finished. Like,
what a way to end the episode. That chapter is finished.
Yeah, we don't talk about it anymore. We don't stress about it anymore. It's just not a thing. It's just a figment of the past.
I love that you say that as well, and that's such a perfect end to the episode, is because like when you're in it, sometimes you feel like that it's just never going to end. And I want to be living proof, and I want this to be your shining light that there is an end. And it does go away once you do the work, do the mindset work, really lean into the discomfort again and again and again and again and again, because let's be real, it's not fucking comfortable to fix it. It's not comfortable, and that's why, 85% of women still have bad body image, and like that's a statistic that I really would love to help change the world, because it's a body image thing, is a mindset thing, and it's something that you can absolutely work on. So with all that being said, thank you for coming onto the podcast. If you guys liked this style of episode and you want to hear more of Niels, send us a message on Instagram, send us a DM, give us your feedback so we know to do it again. Maybe next time we'll put a question box on Instagram, and so the listeners can ask some questions to you or to both of us, or whatever that looks like. But if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to add. Like, this journey, there's not like a switch that you flick and it's like, we're good. You know what I mean? Like, it really took time. Like, it really took time, and it took reps. Like it took reps, just like it took reps in the gym. And it took progressive overload, just like it does progressive overload in the gym. It really is like that, and it took time. And, I see that when I see Laura working with clients today, it's the same. It's the same for them too. It's the same. It's just an iterative process. It's not a one and done thing. It's not like, boom, here you are on the other end of, I don't know, you learned the secret hack or whatever. No, it's not like that. Not like that at all. So, yeah, I guess that's the thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, I love that, because it's about building the skill, and like, yes, there is a process, and yes, there's things that you got to learn how to do and navigate, absolutely, but then you're right in terms of it's just repeating it. It's repetition. It's doing the same thing day in, day out after you learn the skills, but then you got to implement the skills, and that doesn't look perfect. And you got to keep
implementing the
exactly
skills.
And like, you pair it with the perfectionism traits, and that I struggle with that a lot still in some areas of my life.
Totally.
It's it's a recipe of just feeling like a failure 24/7. So I think that was a beautiful wrap up of the episode, is that, a lot of the time you got to have a big fucking breakdown before you have a big breakthrough. And a lot of people are not willing to sit through that discomfort to actually get onto the other side. So I think that is wise words from you, Niels Willemars. It's not a quick fix. It's something that you're going to have to challenge yourself, get outside your comfort zone every single day until you realize you're like, I haven't thought about food in a week.
And that's a really good thing. What I think that you said is get outside your comfort zone, and you use this thing, or you use this expression of pushing your edges. And like, I think that's the best description of it. Pushing your edges every day, a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. So yes, that entire time that you're pushing your edges, you're going to be uncomfortable, because that's what pushing your edges feels like. It feels uncomfortable, right? But then one day you've pushed your edges every day incrementally, and one day you look back and you're like, what was it like this time last year?
I did that.
What was it like this time last year? And you're like, whoa. And that's when you're like, whoa. there's like a quantum leap from that's happened between me last year and me now.
I love how you use the word quantum leap. The manifesting vibes have caught on. Anyway, thank you so much, Niels, for coming on and sharing your experience. I know it's going to help a lot of people really realize that, you know, some things that they might be doing is also not normal, and hopefully give some more people to motivate them to change. So
and thanks to Benji for making a guest appearance.
And like I said, give us feedback, guys. Let us know that you listened. If you listened to the end, send me a DM saying Benji so we know. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
The number one challenge that all my clients face before we start working together is a lack of clarity on how much and what to eat to lose weight. Often they are making two huge mistakes: constantly trying to skip meals or eat under 1,600 calories. Secondly, only allowing themselves bad foods like chocolate on the weekend, but end up binging, all to tell themselves they're going to start again on Monday. If you feel like you have tried every diet under the sun and still can't figure out what to eat to achieve your weight loss goals, take my free 2-minute quiz. You can find the link in the show notes down below. And it will help you figure out exactly what you're doing wrong with your nutrition and exercise, and exactly what to do to fix it, so that you can finally be confident in your body and achieve your weight loss goals.